We were walking down the street one evening here, and up at about the sixth story of a building, we could see in a brightly lit window a young woman with the telltale ring light on. And her face was there right in the window, like as if she were looking out the window, speaking in this very animated, over the top way. And it was the ring light that gave away what was happening right here. You could see the silhouetted ring light and then her brightly lit face right there in the window. She wasn't talking to herself. She wasn't talking to passersby on the street or anything like that. She was recording a YouTube video. So this is a complete stranger in the night, someone I know nothing about. We see looking up from the sidewalk, and you just think, oh, who do you suppose that person is? What do you suppose they're recording a YouTube video about? Right? It could be anything. It could be something wonderful. It could be something meaningful. And of course, the odds are it's something totally meaningless and totally self-indulgent. It could be a review of a new pair of shoes. It could be a new tube of toothpaste. What have you. I understand that most people in the audience, they regard what I'm doing here as shallow by default just because of the format, the platform that it's on, the frame that this picture is set in. I think a lot of people in the audience regard what I'm doing as something shallow and silly and a waste of my time. And therefore, it's incomprehensible to them that I would, while indulging in this hobby and putting so much time into this hobby, that I would close down the comment section saying that it's a waste of time. So this is a seemingly shallow topic that I want to talk about in a reasonably profound way. I want to talk about why I do YouTube, what the philosophy is of doing YouTube for me in 2022. And yeah, I do want to answer the question of why the comments are turned off and what that means to me now and what it would entail to have the comment section open. And look, guys, it does. I mean, it involves in a complex way the meaning of time. You've only got so many years on this earth. You've only got so many years to make a difference in this life, to change the world, right? So wasting time, not just in a sense of being addicted to playing video games versus having other ambitions and so on, but looking at your life over a 5-year span, over a 10-year span and so on, and really thinking in a meaningful way about what it is you're committed to accomplishing in those 10 years, what kind of person you want to be, what kind of risks you're going to take, why you're on YouTube. But, no offense, guys, what do you alive for? What is the meaning of life for you? What is the meaning you're trying to get out of this life? And then what are you willing to do, to make it happen? And I know that kind of discourse coming from me, maybe it's shockingly disconcerting for an audience that is conditioned just by this platform, just by the frame the picture is put in, right? They're conditioned to expect a sort of phony devil-may-care attitude from YouTubers, right? We're supposed to pretend that this is effortless. We're supposed to pretend that it's not a sacrifice, right? And it's not a sacrifice we're making in our lives for very particular perceived and possible outcomes, right? Right away, even if you have only a few hundred viewers, it's a sacrifice. You lose your privacy. You become a public figure. You have all the disadvantages of fame with none of the advantages. It's a gambit. And everybody who does it, everybody has thought through the best case scenario. Not everybody who's done it thinks through the worst case scenario and the range of mediocre possible outcomes that are in between. Now, one aspect of why the comment section is closed, it's on my mind today. I just made a meaningful video talking about Bitcoin, talking about cryptocurrency, talking about economics, which I'm happy to talk to you guys about more. If people are interested in hearing my perspective of that, we can do some spontaneous Q&A on that side of the puzzle. And I got meaningful, well-intentioned comments from the audience, which is not always the case. These were meaningful, well-intentioned comments, but each one would require me to write a short essay in response. And it's not enough for me to say that would be a waste of my time. All right. What I have to say to you further is I really care about the topic. I really care about debunking and counteracting misinformation about the topic. And I don't feel comfortable at all having those comments on my video, even if they're well-intentioned, even if they're not trolling, they're not hateful. I'm not comfortable having them there unanswered. Like, if I don't take the time to answer it, it's below my video. And some of them are seemingly debunking what I'm saying. So, I could give you examples from a whole range of things here that are to varying extents well-intentioned or not so well-intentioned. If you make a video talking about circumcision and you have the comments open, you're going to get Muslim people writing in the comments that everything you're saying about circumcision is untrue. They're perfectly happy with their circumcision. Your medical claims are false and they can debunk it, or just Google the name of some Muslim scholar or another, or some Muslim medical doctor who will prove that this is all wrong. Do you care? Like, on that issue, do you want to have a video that's making a kind of atheist scientific argument about circumcision? And there are a lot more of them than there are you. In the world, on the internet, you can have 500 comments from people who want to defend their religion in that way. And hypothetically, they could all be well-intentioned. Like, maybe none of them are trolling. Maybe none of them are mean-spirited. Maybe none of them are insulting you. It's quite likely many of them will be mean-spirited. But setting that aside, right? Do you care? And I understand the audience is conditioned here. It's just so many YouTubers. So many YouTubers pretend, I'm just having fun on camera. And then the money and the fame is an accident. That's not what motivated them all along. They're just having fun on camera. And they don't care about what people say about the size of their bum or the acne or whatever it is. And then, one after another, these people, they all have some moment where the mask comes off, where they break down weeping and they talk about how they have nightmares because of some anonymous comments in the comment section. This is a mass cultural phenomenon. It's unbelievable. And I'm just being real with you. I don't know if that existed before. If you go back, did people who used to do news broadcasts on NBC have this kind of relation to their audience in the 1970s? People used to make documentaries for PBS. I mean, I know they got letters. I know I've actually I've heard some funny stories about the old days of letter writing campaigns to Hollywood, where piles of letters would come in demanding some kind of change, or people expressing that they're upset about this. Okay, so I'm going to give you two more examples really quickly. We'll come back to the Bitcoin and cryptocurrency example, which I think deserves to be discussed in a little bit of depth. Okay, I have made numerous videos criticizing Nazism, both historical Nazism, the World War II period, etc., and neo-Nazism, and criticizing particular people who are neo-Nazis. I have had the situation on the channel, and I can remember there was one video. I left the comment section open on the video for, I think, about a year, but if not, it was many months. There were hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of comments from neo-Nazis, white supremacists, racists, these type of people, right? And I left that there for a long time so that people could see, like, this is the reality of what you deal with. And I don't know, some other website must have shared the link to that video and whatever. And let me tell you, the vast majority of them were mean-spirited. And I got comments and I got emails during that period for quite a long time of people writing in to let me know that I'm a Jew, as if I didn't know that, to let me know what a bad person I am because I'm Jewish and this kind of thing, to inform me of their racial superiority over me. Go ahead, prove it. I did get that kind of hate mail. That does not concern or upset me in any way. And this is why I'm setting up these examples here, to make this kind of contrast. Now, what would be the point in replying to comments like that, right? Well, the first example was of circumcision. If you really care about changing people's minds about circumcision, and if you even care about viewers who might click on that video and look at the comments first before they watch it, or while they're listening to the first 30 seconds, you care. Look, there are all these comments here that claim they're debunking me, that claim my opinion is ill-informed or unscientific, or that I'm wrong or something. We have a problem where it's not like people read a movie review and then go and watch the movie or something, right? They're hearing people denouncing your short film, however you want to think of it, while they're watching the film. They're hearing hecklers interrupting your performance unknown to you, right? And so now you've got a challenge. What are you going to do? Are you going to delete each of the comments that are contrary to your opinion? Are you going to write an essay in response to each one? And guys, I have timed it. I have. It's something where you use a stopwatch. How long it takes to really dutifully reply to these kinds of comments, even when they're well-intentioned, even when people are actually curious or asking sincere questions, and even when your answer to some of those questions is, oh, that's a good question. I already made a YouTube video about that. Here's the link to the video. It is time-consuming, right? And in a sense, also, when you're thinking about the next viewer to see the video, this still unknown person who's clicking on the video for the first time, you are kind of fighting this uphill battle just to try to get that next viewer to see the video without being biased by the trolls and hate mail and what have you that's below it. Now, again, in some ways, the neo-Nazi example is the easiest to deal with, because anyone seeing that video is going to go, okay, this is a guy who's criticizing neo-Nazis. He's against Nazis or what have you. And you can tell that from the title of the video. And then here are these people in the comments section insulting and denouncing him for being a Jew or what have you. One would hope, the viewer is still receptive in this way. Well, one that's going to be easy for most of you to relate to. What if you do a video talking about the carnivore diet? Okay. I'm vegan, in case you didn't know. And you're debunking health claims about people eating 100% meat diet. You may be debunking the anti-vegan claims made by carnivores. You will get comments in the comment section from people claiming that vegan diet ruined their life and a 100% meat diet miraculously healed them. And guys, there are more of them than there are of us. There are far more of the pro-meat people. There are far more of the people who are just daydreamers willing to believe whatever fad diet is being promoted by Joe Rogan, whatever is being promoted by Jordan Peterson, whatever they read in the last issue of Cosmopolitan magazine or Time magazine, whatever some celebrity has made popular this week or this month. But there are also just more people who hate vegans than people who care about veganism or the ethics or ecology of vegan diet, right? You can lose your whole life answering those comments one at a time. And I already got to kind of really think about this deeply when I had a blog before the YouTube channel. I had a blog prior to starting this YouTube channel. It was called Vegan Mind Tricks, where you really sit there and recognize, wow, they outnumber us like 1,000,000 to 1 on the internet. And like, if you want to do this, and it was somewhat amusing to kind of field hate mail coming in from these people. And it was different because it's, again, unlike the comment section on YouTube, it's not the case that people are seeing what you've written with the heckling from the audience, kind of informing them first or interrupting your performance. You know what I mean? It's not quite the same situation, but you can add up seriously the number of hours of the day on any of these things. And again, the fundamental question is, do you care? Now, I've already alluded to this. It's pretty easy to just dehumanize neo-Nazis and to dehumanize anyone in the audience who sympathizes with people who are racist, white supremacists. It's easy to do that. I've argued in many videos you shouldn't do that. Like, if you're you're doing news, history, politics, news commentary, if you're in this kind of field, I think you actually have to have the kind of detachment to take these things seriously, even if they're fringe ideologies, and really plunge into the critique of them in a thoroughgoing way, and to treat them seriously, even if it is impossible to take them seriously. We have a great question from the audience. So I said in the description of this video, if there are enough intelligent questions, this will become a Q&A. If not, it'll be a monologue. Great question from the audience. Quote, how much ass do you get compared to TKO Sam? See, this is what I miss out on. Right? I do Q&A live here out of the comments. I think the chat open during my live streams. But imagine I could be spending the hours of my day answering questions like this from the audience. Well, the answer to that question is we don't know, because TKO Sam is never honest about how much affection he gets from women. So we'd be comparing something known to something unknown. But you'll find I'm very honest about my love life and about my sex life in a way that TKO Sam is not. Okay, so I made a video talking about cryptocurrency. talking about economics in relation to Bitcoin and in relation to social media influencers, my fellow YouTubers, and even my fellow vegan YouTubers, giving advice that could really ruin people's lives. I care. I really care about that issue. And again, so each example is very different, right? I mean, sadly, if you're getting messages from people who've already been members of the Muslim faith for 40 years, they're very unlikely to change their minds. And you have to ask yourself, do you want to spend your time answering these comments? Well, I got several people commenting me saying that they were absolutely certain that what I was complaining about, so for example, the actions of James Aspie, the actions of Brian Turner, these are just particular examples of social media influencers. But anyway, we could also talk about Jake Paul, Logan Paul. We could talk about all kinds of social media influencers who've become involved in the cryptocurrency phenomenon in the last few years. They were absolutely certain that what I was describing was already illegal under SEC regulations. Now, it's not worth explaining why I know this, but Melissa and I have done quite a bit of reading about SEC regulations in the last few years. And the FINRA exams. And what are the other ones? The CAFTA, I'm forgetting. FINRA, CFA. Right. Okay. So FINRA and CFA and SEC and stuff, and how the licensing for these professions works and what the legal implications are. And I'm sitting there and, I've really got three options. I can just delete this person's particular comment. And they may notice and they may feel insulted. And they say, oh, well, you shut me down just because I disagree with you. I can close the whole comment section. People are going to feel about it however they feel. Or I can sit here and write an essay saying, no, that's not what the SEC regulations say. That's not how American law works. That's not how freedom of speech in America works. That's not get into the paradigm. So I think of those comments, the comments that said that, I think one I deleted. And part of the problem is I care. I care enough that I do not want something that is factually false and misleading like that. I don't want it to be on the internet, but I don't want it to be on my own YouTube channel. And don't want it to be there apparently contradicting my video and showing that I don't know what I'm talking about when I do, right? So this happened in all kinds of different topics on my channel, including like Marxism. Talking about the history of I'm anti-Marxist, by the way, but when I'm doing critique of Karl Marx, and there are people who are pro-Marxist who show up, and the comment may begin with the words, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. This guy hasn't read Karl Marx, and it says something Marx said. And like, okay, do you want me to write an essay back? No, I really have read Karl Marx. I know a lot about the history of Marxism and a lot about the history of communism, and here's what you don't know. Like, do you want to counteract that? Get out your stopwatch. And we can't just think about a waste of time short term. You have to think about it long term, over 5 years, over 10 years, so on and so forth. Where are you going to be 5 years from now if this is how you spend your time answering? Again, we're not even talking about trolls. We're not talking about people with bad intentions or people who are just ridiculing you, who may be sincerely misguided and they're misleading other people right there in your comment section. Now, again, look, a lot of you in the audience, with any of these examples, you may just be saying, oh, whatever, who cares? Who cares if some guy says your video is wrong because he pretends he understands the SEC regulations better than you do? Sorry, I don't think I finished my anecdote. What I was going to say was, I think of the first 3 people, maybe the first 4 people who left a comment to that effect, I deleted one of them because it was just too late at night for me to deal with it. And then the next 3, I said the same thing. I said, you are one Google search away from finding the answer to that question, from finding that you're wrong, finding that you're incorrect, and saying that about government regulations for financial advice. At least one of those guys wrote back to me. And again, I don't think he has any bad intentions, with a long statement saying, no, this is the SEC regulation, section 267, and it says this, whatever. And he's wrong. It's completely wrong. And so what? Should I record another YouTube video talking this through? Right? This is what you can get into. Am I going to write an essay? Am I going to fight this out in the comment section on my own YouTube channel? And guys, this is a substantive, sincere discussion of a matter of fact. That guy had no bad intentions. I don't think any of those people had bad intentions. And there's a sense in which I don't want to delete their comments, right? There's a sense in which I'd like to encourage them to actually do some research and develop a sophisticated point of view of this. I can give you another example where it was all just really shallow, badly motivated, catty comments. But you guys remember, I'm an atheist, and I actually talk about the importance of not celebrating Christmas, not celebrating Easter, like not carrying on with these Christian traditions, but taking the time to innovate and create something meaningful for your children or grandchildren that's different from the Christian traditions that have come before. Pardon me. It would not be surprising if I got hate mail from Christians, if I got hate mail from Muslims and Jews. Oh, no, of course not. It's other atheists who are attacking me. It's other atheists who are saying the cattiest and most mean-spirited thing imaginable in response to that. So again, that's very different. Like, what is there to win and what is there to lose? I did take some time replying to some of the other atheists on that issue, partly because quite a few of them had their own YouTube channels, and some of them have been YouTubing for years. And I can remember saying to them, like, look, you've just said this incredibly mean and insulting thing about me. Like, here's the scenario. I am a father I am a father preparing to spend Christmas with my daughter. Like that was stated, I think, in the first couple minutes of the video. It says, look, I am a parent. I have a child. Like, and at that time when I made that video, we were packing our bags and, like we were figuring out how to make a gingerbread house. Like we were figuring out how to do some holiday activities. Guys, I am not going to keep perpetuating this cycle of inculcating religious beliefs I don't believe in. This is really meaningful to me. And I'm here to talk to you about the challenge of trying to do something better for my own daughter. But I took the time to reply to several of these atheists and say, look, man, like, this is how mean-spirited you are to me. Like, this is how cruel and vicious you are to me when that's the scenario. Like, there are all kinds of occasions on which people get to exercise that kind of catty, vicious side of their character on the internet. I don't know. Frankly, open up the newspaper. You can leaf through the newspaper and ask yourself, what do I have to be outraged about today? Find something that you think is a moral obscenity and just make a YouTube video denouncing it. And it's like, and you, these different atheist YouTubers, you decided it was me. You decided it was a parent talking about writing new poetry to recite with his daughter, creating a new illustrated storybook for his daughter, because I don't want to celebrate Jesus Christ. I don't want to celebrate Santa Claus. I also don't really want to celebrate Mickey Mouse. Like, I don't like Mickey Mouse or Donald Duck. I know it's not religion. It's just garbage. It's just crap. Like, I don't feel that the culture handed down to me by my ancestors is good enough, for me to inculcate this into the next generation, educate the next generation in this, raise them with these assumptions. So anyway, you can take the time to do that, okay? How many of those other atheists? So these are people who are hypothetically committed to a movement to change the world, right? Hypothetically, these people are radicals. They're rebels, right? These people are supposedly the leaders of the revolution. In reality, they're not, right? What do you think my success rate was? What percentage of those people sent me back any kind of message that was even grudgingly respectful, or like treated me with a bare minimum of dignity that you would extend to the bank teller or the person who bags your groceries? Zero. The reality is, I'm an atheist YouTuber making pro-atheist content, and I'm treated just as badly by my fellow atheists, as I am by neo-Nazis. Right? Now, you guys can draw your own conclusions about this. Would it be reasonable for me to say this is now 2022? The vast majority of other vegans and vegan YouTubers, right? They treat me about as badly as the neo-Nazis. They treat me about as badly as the communists. They treat me about as badly as the people I've criticized. There's no mutual respect or esprit de corps or cooperation, right? There's no real decorum. You can feel free to disagree. You can take it. I mean, I'm making videos about veganism for such a long time, but guys, I've been making content about atheism for such a long time. I've been making content about parenting and about the children's storybooks I've written for how many years? I think I'm up to about 8 years on YouTube at this point. So these are all, areas I've really contributed to a great deal. Bitcoin relatively recently. I think my first video about Bitcoin was about 1 year and 1 month ago. This hasn't been something time before. I haven't built up a huge audience for that. Guys, I do see your comments as they come in. Okay, so it's a reasonable comment here, but you'll see I'm going to give a seemingly irrelevant answer. So Generation X says, quote, I think you were giving commenters too much credit. If you let people comment, there will be more engagement with your videos. They'll be more shared. And he says, there will always be idiots. Okay, so I really disagree. And I also think that what you're saying is kind of spurious to the big point I'm making in this video. I'm not angry at you or something. I'm just saying I do disagree. And I am someone with 8 years of experience with this and over 6 million views at this point. Now, I ask you this. If you make the decision to share the link to a particular video with a particular person, what is that decision based on? It's never based on the comments in the comment section. I don't believe that. Maybe one person out of a million. If you happen to see a video today, I do it often enough. There's a video about a particular topic. For me, it's like, oh, here's someone who really did the research on this historical issue. My judgment is never based on the quality of the comments in the comment section. I never say, oh, hey, you should check out this video. This guy took a really long time to answer comments in the comment section. Never. It's never based on what the YouTuber himself writes in the comment section. It's never based on the reply. So, you share the link to a particular video with a particular person because it's compelling to you. It's about some topic that really matters to that person, really matters to you. There's some reason. There's some particular reason we do that. And guys, there's very little of that activity happening now in 2022. In many ways, just the public enthusiasm for YouTube has cooled off. And the type of websites where people used to share those links, I just say it's now much harder for new videos it's much harder for new channels to become successful, precisely because that type of sharing activity has died down compared to, say, the heady days of 2014. So I think this is a good question, by the way. So John Ortiz asks, so who checks if you're correct? So look, this is the other thing. It may be a good use of my time to go out and do the research and write an essay in response to a question from the audience. So the specific example I've been using here repeatedly is there's a comment about Bitcoin, about cryptocurrency, and someone says, oh, these are the SEC regulations we already have. This is the legal framework we already have. This is what's already legal and illegal. Okay, there is a kind of argument that it's good for the good of my soul, so to speak, for me to go out, do the research, and write an essay in response to that question, right? The problem is, over a 5-year period of time, that is a completely thankless task. That's literally more of a waste of my time than making a new YouTube video. Just answering that one question in text form as a written composition will take more time than making a YouTube video, right? And what I'm asking here is not just short term, not just what happens to 1 day of your life or 1 week of your life or 1 month of your life when you take the time to do this. I'm asking over 5 years and over 10 years. After that time is gone, what have you got left? And I knew another YouTuber. I'll leave her unnamed for the sake of it. And she was on vacation with her family in South America. I believe this was in Colombia. And she said that was the first time it struck her just how many hours she was spending viciously attacking people on Twitter and in YouTube comment sections. So I'd seen her too. I'd seen her viciously attacking me in YouTube comment sections. So I know she was someone who put a lot of work into it. She was someone who got vicious and just spent a lot of time. Now, I think the reason for this was that the billing system they had in Colombia at that time, I'm sure all these technologies will have changed in just a few years, but at that time, it was quite expensive for her to access her mobile phone network and use the internet via her phone. So it's sort of something where every hour was being measured that she had connectivity, that she was online. And she decided to quit YouTube entirely. I think she quit YouTube, quit Twitter. She decided to quit social media. She said, look, this has become, like, maybe this was supposed to be a part-time hobby, and it's become a full-time job. She was spending so much time passionately denouncing these people. She had a husband, she had kids. At that time, she didn't have a job. She had just been raising her kids and think she was planning to go back into the workforce. And she just had to recognize how much time was there. So look, now again, guys, I think Marxism is another really great example. I did for several years make myself available to talk to communists. A couple of times I talked to people who were Nazis or neo-Nazis, to talk to people with really different points of view from myself, right? And it takes time. I mean, you do that out of generosity of spirit. Not like I don't gain anything. I really, it doesn't do me any good to talk to a communist or talk to a neo-Nazi to try to deprogram them, try to challenge their self-righteous ignorance and overturn their assumptions. Right? But I can do that, right? So you could be getting comments about economics from a Marxist point of view. The example I'm using here about Bitcoin, it's not mean-spirited at all. It's not like talking to communists or neo-Nazis. It's just somebody who's wrong. Somebody means completely means well, but they're really wrong, and it would really be a huge chunk of your time to talk about it. So I want to zoom out a bit. As I say, it's one thing to say. Now, look, I had to think about that today. What is my list of things to get done today? And I made the decision with that particular video. I thought, wow, this really shows, even when you're having no problems with anti-Semitism, you're having no problems with kind of harassment or trolling, even when you're having none of the problems the internet is infamous for. We don't have people denouncing you for your sex life on the basis of a rumor that was made up by Socrates on the internet 10 years ago, a rumor that's still on Reddit that never had any basis in reality, and where if you just click through the link that's in that text, you'll see it was nonsense all along, like a rumor made up by Freely or Durian Rider, like it's not that stuff you're dealing with. That even when you're dealing with people who have good intentions and in a sense good questions, you can't justify taking the time to answer them, to have an open comment section. Okay, I have to think about that in terms of what I'm going to get accomplished today. I have to think about it in terms of what I'm going to accomplish this week and this month. Let me ask you something. What happened to the amazing atheist? What happened to the whole vitality of the political movement that he was once voluntarily or involuntarily a leader of? I mean this sincerely. I'm not being snide. There was a period of time when a certain number of hit books were published, clustered together, in time. A certain number of lecture tours were embarked upon by high-profile, world-famous atheists. And simultaneously, on YouTube, The Amazing Atheist emerged, Jacqueline Glenn emerged, a generation of commentators whom you could indeed call B-list celebrities, whereas the people who had best-selling books on the New York Times bestseller list, people who had hit books or hit movies, I think there were a couple documentary movies that came with them. Remember Religulous? How many years ago was that? Hit movie by that TV talk show host. So there were, Bill Maher. So Bill Maher had hit books and hit movies. And of course, the infamous Sam Harris had a number of hit books and so on, attacking religion. So, okay. And by the way, also all of that, I think you could say somewhat nebulously, it was linked to September 11th, 2001 and public reaction after September 11th, 2001. So in terms of the overall political context, certainly Sam Harris and his rise to fame had everything to do with that. So there was a questioning of Islam, a questioning of Christianity, and there was a time when you could, if you strike while the iron was hot, could change the world. And people like the Amazing Atheist were able to attract huge amounts of donations with incredibly vague promises. They were going to do something with the money. And what I'm saying to you is, I believe the Amazing Atheist did nothing with the money. Now, today, I'm just being honest with you. Many years ago, I remember you could still find websites that had collected together lists. By the way, I see some more good questions coming in. I will answer them in a second. You could see websites that had collected together lists of all the e-begging the Amazing Atheist had done. I remember there was one YouTube channel that had made a video about it, and the YouTube channel is now deleted. It's unfortunate because I wish someone had kept a copy of that one video. It wasn't riveting, but it was just this guy talking through example by example. Then the Amazing Atheist asked for money for this. Then he asked for that. And most of these projects just didn't happen. Most of them were just vapor. But the ones that kind of sort of did happen, it was a lot like the Intellivision Amico. It was kind of like, well, it just barely happened. The money was taken, and this project, it never got rolling, or very, very little came out of it. There was very little to show in terms of outcomes. By the way, to give you one example, at one point, the Amazing Atheist said he was so unhappy about censorship on YouTube, he was going to start his own video hosting website to compete with YouTube, to have a video sharing platform. He never really defined. I believe he said it was going to be for him and his friends, for him and like-minded people to have videos on it. I forget but he didn't define it strictly as being an atheist YouTube competitor, or what exactly the sense of mission was. But he did have a certain degree of showmanship in coming on camera and making this sales pitch and say, look, freedom of speech is being stifled here on YouTube. We can't say what we want to say anymore. We can't, listen, we need to have a less censored video platform. And a lot of people lined up and donated a lot of money. And in the end, there was absolutely nothing to show for it. Nothing. And he never made a YouTube video answering it either. The question of where did the money go? Why did the money all disappear? He did once in a live Q&A session, basically during a live stream. There were other people participating. It wasn't him alone. He addressed it. And I remember him saying, hey, look, somebody edit this part out and make a YouTube video out of it so people can find it when they ask that question. He was that lazy that he never even made a video really dealing with and talking through item by item where the money went and what had been accomplished with it. Okay, it's a quick parallel. We all lived through this. This is now the year 2022. Can anyone remember the year 2020? Can anyone remember the political events of just the last 2 years? Can anyone remember thousands of radicals and anarchists marching in the streets, thousands of communists demanding, police reform, demanding changes to, the system of policing in the United States of America? And now today, where is that interest? And, in many cases, we also have to ask, in terms of the public enthusiasm that caused, where did the money go? More than $90 million were donated to one organization called Black Lives Matter. The total amount of money given to Black Lives Matter type organizations over many years, it will be much, much more than $90 million. Obviously, it's more than $100 million. That would be an incredibly conservative amount. Where is the change? What do we have to show for it? Where are the outcomes? Right now, I'm just going to ask you. Really, it's very, very debatable. You compare these two examples, like atheism and police reform. Which one is the bigger example? I mean, I know if you lived through 2020, especially if you were in Portland, Oregon or something, you might feel like police reform is the bigger story, or the more urgent, or just more tremendous in scale. It's not. Atheism is global. The quality of police services in the United States of America is limited to the United States of America. Some of these questions are, perhaps global in their implications. And, as many people lined up to argue in response to that movement, in response to the so-called defund the police movement, within the United States of America, there are many places where the quality of police services are exemplary. So it's not even a universal problem within the United States. And you have this whole discourse. Frankly, of course, it is in large part a discourse of excuse making. Like, let me make it clear, I don't really sympathize with either side in that debate. If you want to know what my position is, you have to buy my book. I wrote a whole book about it. My book is called No More Manifestos. So that should be out the next couple of weeks. Talk about questions of, are you wasting your time? When you've got a manuscript to finish, I could put 12 hours a day into that manuscript, and spending just 2 or 3 hours a day answering YouTube comments, that would cut into it considerably. Okay, my point is this. I heard another YouTuber say recently, and I showed it at this YouTuber just lately. So I believe her name is Sarah Woods. Sarah Wood. I'll get the name here. I will get the correct name. So I made a video recently showing this woman on YouTube channel. She is an African-American woman who researches, Susan Woods, who researches corruption and inefficiency within the Black Lives Matter movement. She is asking the tough questions again and again and again, including the question of, where did the money go? So on and so forth about Black Lives Matter. So one of the things she said in passing, she didn't say this particularly passionately. She didn't say this with any great intensity or theatricality. But she said very simply, she's now an older woman. I guess she's in her mid-50s. She said, an opportunity like this will not come again in her lifetime. I would ask, will it happen again in the next 100 years? This is a woman who's already lived a long life. And she said very simply, there will never be another time when all the white people are marching in the street with us and saying our problems matter, our concerns matter. There will never be another time when people in Paris, France are marching because of Black American politics. And when people were donating money to this cause, it wasn't just rich white people. Of course, it wasn't just Black people either, but people from Paris and Germany and I think Japan. Maybe I'm wrong about that. I don't know the Japanese perspective on BLM, to be honest with you. But, people around the world were really animated, were really motivated, were really sympathetic, and where there was a consensus for maybe just 2 short years that something has to change, that things have to get better, and we have to start taking some risks. Like we have to, as people like to say, change the system, right? That we need something to change. She said very simply, now, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I'm paraphrasing. Nothing like this had ever happened during her life. And nothing like this is going to happen again during her life or during a human lifetime. Like within the span of a century, this was a unique opportunity to make some kind of change. And to say that that opportunity was squandered would be an understatement. I mean, the single biggest foundation involved here, the Black Lives Matter Global Foundation, approximately, the one led by Patrisse Cullors, that specific BLM organization. Certainly they received more than $90 million. The number 90 million comes from one report at one point in time. They would have received donations before that and in the years after that, so we don't know. In excess of $90 million was placed in the hands of this organization with no questions asked, right? To say that that opportunity has been squandered would be an understatement. There are really serious questions to be asked there. And frankly, I do not expect there to be any answers. I just have no reason to think in the next 5 years or I don't think we'll ever know what happened to the money. I think there's no reason to expect any accountability or outcomes from that. And the question is, will we in the audience right now, you people watching this video, are we going to draw some new conclusions? Are we going to learn some lessons in this? Are we going to take on new directions in politics, new forms of organization, new forms of innovation? That's what I just wrote a whole book about. So I have 2 books out this year, 2022. One is called Veganism, Future of an Illusion. Very provocative, very entertaining book. And it's only about 100 pages long, 100 pages, 120 pages. It's a quick read. No More Manifestos is a much longer, much heavier book. And by the way, it's going to be published both in English and in Spanish. We have a few people here who speak Spanish as their first language. Both of my books are being translated into Spanish. And we'll see if maybe I can become fluent in Spanish myself, reading my own work in parallel. Oh yeah, so Frida says yes. Doesn't it? So some of you, it will certainly be good if your English is mediocre, you'd be able to read both and compare them. Anyway, good. We have some more questions coming back to Bitcoin. Here's one of the leitmotifs of this video, but not the core topic here. So we had another question from Generation X, and this is a good question, and it really is part of what I wanted to address in this video. So he's maybe picking up on something implicit here. He asked simply, may I ask what the goal of this channel is? So look, I'd point out, this channel's name tells you something about its secret origins, right? À-bas-le-ciel. What were my assumptions when I created this YouTube channel in the first place? Right? What was the point of this YouTube channel and what was going on YouTube generally? Right? It's really fair to say my YouTube channel was in significant part a response to and an imitation of what The Amazing Atheist was already doing. It was very specifically a response to what was going on in atheism on YouTube. and what seemed to be the beginnings of a somewhat intellectual atheist movement. Now, there are a lot of things I can contribute to that. No offense. I have a higher level of education in politics than anyone else I know of with an atheist YouTube channel. Like, so there may be some I don't know about, but if you compare me to Jacqueline Glenn, if you compare me to The Amazing Atheist, so on and so forth, well, okay, my field of study, my formal training and career was in politics, political science, political philosophy, all of the above, whatever you want to say, mud and blood, real world politics. I know a lot about politics. I know a lot about history. So there's something I can bring to it there already. The other reality is, in case you didn't know, I was a scholar of Buddhism for about 10 years. And there was nobody dealing with Buddhism on YouTube. There's nobody engaged in an atheist critique of Buddhism. And I was willing to step up and do that. So my assumptions in getting involved with YouTube in the first place had everything to do with that atheist movement. So I'm still answering your question, Generation X. It's not the end of the answer yet, you know. But I want to remind you of the question I raised before myself. Okay, the people who donated money to The Amazing Atheist, what were they expecting? They were expecting him to do something. They were expecting some kind of outcome. They were expecting him to change the world, or at least to get up off his ass and really try, right? They were expecting to see something, you know? You can ask the same question about people who donated to Black Lives Matter. They probably didn't have very precise expectations. People donated millions of dollars to Black Lives Matter. What outcomes did they want to see? What were their expectations? You could interview people about this. I think a great many of the donors said, well, I just wanted to do something positive. I wanted to see something come of it. I wanted to they might say, I wanted to see that there was some kind of change for the better. Totally well-intentioned. You know, I'm not faulting them for that. But they probably didn't have any precise or particular expectations. Well, the truth is, there was a period of time when something really great could have been made out of the raw material of the atheist movement here on YouTube. There really was. And that time was coming to an end just when I got onto YouTube. Like, I think I joined this platform when the opportunity was ending or over to be an atheist on YouTube, to talk about atheism, the politics of atheism, to engage in the critique of religion and so on. And I could now, in a completely self-centered, self-pitying way, let you know how disappointed I am with all the people who didn't cooperate with me and didn't collaborate with me and didn't encourage me, all the people who treated me like crap, when a little bit of civility would have gone a long way. And, you know, a lot of these other podcasts and YouTube channels, I see what they're doing. They're scraping the bottom of the barrel to have someone to interview about Buddhism. And I'm able to write and say, look, I actually learned to read and write Pali. I actually lived in Cambodia and Laos and Thailand. And actually, even when I wasn't living there, like when I was living in England, I was reading about the anthropology and politics and history of this part of the world, some with really a lot of deep knowledge and experience, including the type of shallow anecdotes. I mean, I have deep knowledge and experience. I also have shallow knowledge and experience, the type of anecdotes that really make an interview, a podcast, or a YouTube video worthwhile. And not a single one of those channels was ever willing to talk to me. Also, I offered to travel. I offered to go to those events and meet up in face-to-face. So, look, guys, I am not saying this for no reason. This is an answer to a question, but it's a question I did want to get to here. And it relates even to the topic of the title of this video, you know, why I don't have the YouTube comment section anymore, right? Okay. I was vegan before the YouTube channel began. I did not plan for this YouTube channel to be primarily about veganism. I still try to argue to people that it is neither exclusively nor primarily about veganism, right? But for several years, we could talk through a sort of parallel phenomenon. I would say, Melissa and I were just talking about this before the video. I would say this came to a crescendo in, say, 2014. There was a period of time when there was this tremendous potential, this tremendous hope. There were these raw materials for something really positive to be made out of the vegan movement. And then I got to see that come to an end. And I was warning people too while it happened. I was like, look, guys, this is not going to last. There's this period where it has a certain kind of novelty, where there's a certain kind of interest. And yes, if we're really being honest, as with Black Lives Matter, as with the amazing atheist and atheist activism, with vegan activism too, there were millions of dollars involved. Ultimately, there was money coming from donors. There was support for the ambitions of people. And sometimes that support is very nonspecific. They just are giving money to a YouTube channel or organization. They donate this money with a very vague hope. I hope you do something. I hope something positive will come of it. Some good will come of it. And what actually happened with their money? My answer is nothing. I mean, I feel that all of the money given to the amazing atheist was wasted. It might as well have been flushed down the toilet. But I'm equally ruthless in looking at my fellow vegans. Well, don't get twisted. I'm atheist. He's atheist. There's a sense in which we're on the same team here, guys, right? With the same kind of change in the world we want to accomplish, right? Like okay, but I feel every penny that's been donated to the amazing atheist has been flushed down the toilet, has been wasted. And if you add it up just over the last 10 years, his career is more than 10 years. It's a whole lot of pennies, guys. There's a whole lot of potential that's been squandered there. Okay, what about all the money that's been donated to Unnatural Vegan? What about all the money that's been donated to any of the idols of the vegan movement? How about the vegan prince, Timothy Sheaf? Tim Sheaf. How about all the money and support he got? Guys, like, we could go through a list of incredibly embarrassing examples of people who took the money and then went back to eating meat. They didn't even remain vegan or whatever, But the money and fame and time and attention, it also would be squandered. And I was in the uncomfortable position of warning people in advance. I was talking about it in advance as it happened. Look, guys, we have a brief period of time right now. This is like molten iron. When the iron is hot, you can make a difference. And then later on, the iron's going to cool down. No matter how hard you hit it, you can't change its shape. This video is partly inspired by a short comment I read in a book called 13 Clocks. I can give you guys the link to that book. It's a peculiar name for a peculiar book. I'm reading this book very slowly and very thoroughly, so any of you can laugh at me when I finally tell you I've finished this book. Let me tell you. This is a book about the history of the United States of America in, say, the 15 years leading up to the American Revolution. And this is not the thesis it's especially famous for. It should work. But it's full of observations about the history of American politics that reflect the fact that the author did an enormous amount of reading from year to year, frankly, on a kind of Picayune scale. So one of his claims to fame is that he read every newspaper published in the United States of America for every day. They weren't published daily at that time, so that's why it was possible. But every newspaper published for so many years leading up to the American Revolution, and for all the years during the American Revolution leading up to writing of the Constitution and so on. So he had a real sense of how political interests changed from one year to the next. I'm now in my mid-40s, so it's very easy for me to relate to this. And if I'd been reading this as a younger man, I would have been shocked and horrified. I wouldn't have been able to accept this. But he says that the interest in abolishing slavery hit a peak in 1773, and then it was already disappearing in the year 1774 and was forgotten in 1775. And he backs this up with evidence. So if I were reading this at age 23, I'd be saying, what do you mean? This is so totally fundamental for American politics. How can people only care about an issue for about a year and a half and then lose interest and move on to another political issue? This is insane. This is crazy. And by the way, you look at the lives of any of the particular people, the so-called founding fathers, it's true within their lives. Also, it's like, oh yeah, for about 1 year, he really cared a lot about slavery, and then he didn't care about it. Just his priorities changed. Now at age 43, I can look at this sort of thing and say, people are like that. That's what people are like. People care about something so intensely for a short time and forget all about it. You know what I mean? Even slavery, even in the United States of America, this brief time, there's this intense public interest, and there's the possibility that things will change. And then that moment is lost, and the potential trickles away, fizzles out, the fire burns down. All right. Now, you tell me, this is the year 2022. What was possible in the year 2020? What's possible today? All right, I can tell you something. Collecting more than $90 million, an institution that had basically no legitimacy whatsoever. It didn't even have the normal kind of structure of board of directors and a constitution, and wasn't promising to accomplish anything. Something with the vaguest mandate imaginable. The Black Lives Matter Foundation could get $90 million in 1 year without even promising what they're going to do with the money. You have no idea. And again, if you've actually read her work, Patrisse Cullors, loathsome character. There are various things that are politically horrifying about who she is, where she comes from, the book she's published. What she has to say about communism, for example, the extent to which she is a Marxist or a communist, so on and so forth. So there are all these red flags, literally, about Black Lives Matter as an organization. Okay, I'll tell you what was possible in the year 2020, collecting $90 million with nothing but a promise, a vague promise to try your best to make things better. That's impossible now in 2022. The hope, the optimism, the credulity of 2020 is gone. And you know what? I think you can even really say the world has become more racist rather than less racist as a result, which is in some ways long-term, it's maybe the greatest tragedy of all. And think about how the people of France now regard us just meaning the people of the United States and Canada. Think about how the people of Japan regard us. Think about just what a sad joke American democracy has become in the eyes of the world, how it's discredited so much about this system of government. Sorry, but from soup to nuts, as they say, from the most trivial and small things up to the most grandiose abstractions. Anyway, the implications that way are really terrible. In this same sense, I think there was a time when something was really possible on YouTube with atheism. I think there was a time when something was really possible for the vegan movement. Maybe there have been a few other opportunities like that I haven't seen, and I've been a part. There have been other budding political movements. Certainly there was a time when it was possible to do what Jimmy Dore did, what the Young Turks did, in starting up a political commentary and analysis channel. And I think that opportunity is gone also. There's some of these opportunities have come and gone. So, what is the purpose of this channel? As we're going into the next season of à-bas-le-ciel. Well, I can tell you it's something very different from what's been here before. I've written this book, Veganism, The Future of an Illusion, and that's really my final and definitive contribution to the vegan movement. That sums up and brings together everything I've learned from, say, the last 10 years, roughly. It does not repeat anything that's already on this channel. It really doesn't. So if you've already watched the YouTube videos on this channel, you will not find this is a summary of or reiteration of what was already there. It has a lot of it goes much further than anything on this channel. It's very hard-hitting. It's very honest. Whether or not it would be censored on this YouTube channel, it goes all the way with certain arguments that have never appeared on this channel, have never been on YouTube. That is really my final contribution to the vegan movement. And with that, I close that chapter of my life, And as I've already alluded to, the very first chapter of this channel had everything to do with atheism. It had to do with my own background as a scholar of Buddhism and what I had to contribute as someone who had devoted years of his life to studying that philosophy, those ancient texts, that politics, that history, and also those languages. You'll get to see on this channel just how much of my brain is still preoccupied, or let's just say how much of my brain is still occupied by the study of Pali, Laotian, Thai, Cambodian, Burmese, Sinhalese, these languages I sunk years of my life into learning. So I don't want to digress to this video, but you're going to see some new YouTube videos talking about that. So, what does what does YouTube become about for me? What is it about now? What's it about next? This YouTube channel is going to become a reflection of the reading I am doing, the research I'm doing. It's going to become a so-called booktube channel where I talk about the books I've read, and it's going to become a reflection of my own life as an author, my own life as a creator outside of YouTube, which may be writing books primarily. It may be writing scripts. It may be trying to be a filmmaker, trying to be a screenwriter, and it may be something halfway in between, like doing more stand-up comedy, getting out and doing those things. But where I don't regard YouTube as the art form I'm engaged in, right? My YouTube channel becomes sorry, to use an economic term, it's like the difference between a leading indicator and a lagging indicator. It's more like a lagging indicator. What I'm doing on YouTube is lagging behind and reflecting the other research I'm doing, the other reading I'm doing, the other writing I'm doing, and then the other work I'm doing as a creative artist. But YouTube itself is no longer really the primary platform I'm thinking of that I'm motivated to do work on as a creative artist. Now, why? Okay, this comes back to the title of this video, why I'm making this video about answering or not answering questions from the audience. It comes down to, what difference can you make? Now, this is a huge contradiction in all of our lives. Right? By the way, thanks for taking the time to comment, guys. I see some of you are having some meaningful conversations amongst yourselves, which is great. I have no problem with that. If you have a second, hit thumbs up. That'll help more people find the video when I've helped more people find the video, period, whether they see it today, tomorrow, or 10 years from now. So I'm happy we have about 30 people in the audience. If you want to hit thumbs up, so we have 30 thumbs up. Thanks. It's a mitzvah. What can I tell you? And by the way, guys, I said before, I'm happy to talk a little bit more about Bitcoin. I can come back to talking about Bitcoin if you're interested in hearing my perspective on that. I don't mind. Okay. You probably have at least one relative who is an alcoholic. Think about your grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins. If you go out far enough, there's somebody who's either an alcoholic or a drug addict. And I will just confess, my definition of alcoholic may not be the same as yours. I think if alcohol is ruining your intellectual life, your emotional life, or your ethical life, it's ruining who you are intellectually, emotionally, ethically, you've got a problem. You've got to quit drinking alcohol. I drink absolutely zero alcohol. So I might perceive someone as an alcoholic and you don't. But with that having been said, you probably know someone in your family or your coworkers. All right. And if I say to you, let's say his name is John, why don't you take John aside and really deal with this? Why don't you really sit down with John and say, hey, I'm trying to save your life? It's very likely that you will say back it's very likely you will say back, the reason why you never have done that and the reason why you never will do that is that it couldn't possibly make a difference, is that nothing will change. So there will be some conflict created in your life. There will be some level of mutual distrust and acrimony, but nothing positive is going to come out of it, right? Well, what is the point of my confronting, and I've done this, confronting communists face-to-face on the internet, confronting Nazis face-to-face on the internet, and by the way, confronting a lot of misconceptions from well-intentioned, moderate left-wing people. I mean, I've also taken on anarchists, libertarians, anarcho-capitalists. There have been all kinds of misconceptions taken on. But I've also really criticized and attacked like misconceptions that are common amongst Bernie Sanders supporters, kind of moderate leftists. And, there's someone here saying they discovered my channel because of my criticism of Marxism, and it was very valuable to them. Good. Thank you. I'm glad to hear that. And, I have my own emotional reasons for dealing with this. I grew up surrounded by left-wing people and being in the vegan movement for so many years. surrounded by left-wing people. I don't know. When I was a Buddhist, did I know any right-wing people? There are conservative Buddhists, but I don't know if any of them ever broke bread with me and so on, right? We have the incentive to positively change the world, right? But then we have the disincentive of this awareness. What difference can it possibly make? What difference can I possibly make? Even when we're talking about just one person, we're talking about your friend John. Let's say it's your cousin John, okay? I'm going to introduce a very simple variable. What if John is 10 years younger than you? And what if John is 10 years older than you? Right? It's different, but it's also exactly the same. So I'm 43. I could have a cousin who's 53. I could have a cousin who's 33. Right? The onus on me, is it any different? Right. So great. We have a couple people in the audience who know just what I'm talking about. Alexandra says, quote, most of the male side of my family is alcoholic. I tried to discuss it with them many a time, but it's like talking to a brick wall, and I have no idea how to approach it anymore. Right. Okay, so here's what I want to say to you, Alexander. What if you were PewDiePie? What if you were Jacqueline Glenn? What if you were the amazing atheist? If you had an audience the size of Jacqueline Glenn, and you sit down with your alcoholic relative on camera and you record this, all of a sudden there's a point. All of a sudden there's this tremendous positive motivating factor that you can change the world just by talking about these problems, right? I'll give you another example. I could give a whole series of parallel examples here. All right. I confronted 2 cops walking distance from my house, let's put it that way, about what was going on here with crime on my own block. And it was a really nasty face-to-face confrontation. These cops tried to intimidate me, and they failed. There were a lot of really strange ironies in this face-off I had with these 2 cops. I could go into detail here, right? The question being put to these cops is also fundamentally, why don't they actually enforce the law, so on and so forth. And the cops told me. They told me their excuses for exactly why they don't enforce the law. Interesting little moment in my life. Okay, so really good question. What's the point of doing this? It's never happened again. I mean, since that time, can't say it's never happened in my life, but since that one event, let's say it's 2 years ago. It's quite a long time ago now. Since that event, about 2 years ago, I haven't had other confrontations with the cops. So what's the point of talking to the cops? What's the point of talking to the cops about the crime problem, or about the police brutality problem, or about the latest decisions made by City Hall? What if you're PewDiePie? What if you're Jacqueline Glenn? What if you're the amazing atheist? Right? Imagine how meaningful it would be. Indeed, during the year 2020, any one of those people could have gotten off their ass and just interviewed a cop. They could have interviewed one police officer who knew about this stuff, about their perspective, right? And all of a sudden, there's this tremendous potential just because it's on camera. So look, this is something I have to manage, guys. This is something I have to manage in my own life. I have this small audience. It'd be normal for one of my videos to reach 1,000 people. Okay. So what do you guys think? Do you think I should get members of my family on camera and have confrontations about this stuff? I've said I have relatives who have drinking problems. Okay, I'm not going to get into specify who they are. I can do that. I can make that content, right? Do you think I should film myself confronting the cops? Do you think I should film myself taking a stand on any one of these issues? Now, the issue with Marxism runs really deep. How about the professors at the University of Victoria? I already alienated myself from those professors and made my life miserable and possibly sabotaged my own career or what have you by really standing up and being anti-Marxist and anti-communist in a university that's partly dominated by communists. It's not totally dominated, but there are a lot of communists, there are a lot of Marxists around in academia. And if you don't like it, you can go to one of the crazy Christian universities where instead, go to the Mormon university where religious maniacs dominate the university. So not all universities are left-wing, but the right-wing ones are going to be really, really scary, right? Okay, so look, I could recount to you from memory a whole bunch of face-offs I have with professors. We're face to face with professors. I'm standing up for what I think truth and justice is, or whatever. Okay, what's the point? What's going to change? You can make an argument. I did change the minds of a couple of unique individual people. You can also make the argument, I'm not getting into here in terms of virtue ethics, I became a better person, through having that experience, through having that practice. And that's what most of you are going to have to come down to when you're thinking about your own alcoholic uncles and cousins or brothers and sisters, whatever it is, where you're in a situation where you say, okay, I can't make you into a better person, and I can't be a better person for you, right? But I can be a better person with you. And, part of me being a good person involves me letting you know, me trying to intervene, me trying to, in this sense, save your life. And guys, I'm not joking when I say this about Marxism. We have different people talking about the seriousness of Marxism and so on this way. You can say this also about racism and fascism and some other ideologies. There is a sense when I sit down and talk to someone who's a true believing Marxist, I am trying to save their life. I know it's very different from being addicted to alcohol. It's very different from being addicted to cocaine or heroin. But it is no joke. Marxism ruins people's lives. Communism ruins people's lives. Obviously, joining a neo-Nazi gang, ruins people's lives, right? So look, my point is most of you are making these decisions just on the basis of virtue ethics. What kind of person am I going to be? Who am I going to become? And me, just being myself in this strange sense. Okay, I have to make this effort. I have to let you know that your alcoholism is bad and evil and wrong, or your commitment to communism or your commitment to racism, or whatever it is bad and evil. I have to step up. I have to disrupt the tranquility of this family situation, or this workplace situation, or this university classroom situation. You know what I mean? I've got to take a risk, even though you really have nothing to win except your own sense of dignity, right? So what's happened with this YouTube channel, like in the transition from season 1 to season 2, right? The transition that's happened here really is the end of any hope I had to change the world through this YouTube channel, right? So the first concept of being a part of what was then, although briefly, great comment. Gen X comments, quote, Marxists are worse than cocaine. I tried both. Problem with South America is Marxism and cocaine often go hand in hand. It's the Marxists who are making money out of cocaine dealing and cocaine shipping. Whole Marxist armies have been funded through cocaine trafficking. Anyway, yeah. I'll ask you this though: if you had to have a roommate, would you rather have a roommate who was Marxist and sober, or not a Marxist but a cocaine addict? Unfortunately, if a Marxist is your roommate, they could also be a cocaine addict, but leaving that possibility aside. Anyway, again, thanks guys. I am seeing your comments as they come in from the audience. We have someone here mentioning, Hassan Piker and Destiny, right? So imagine how different life is for them once you have a large enough audience that even discussions about the most trivial of political issues in this sense start to have a point, start to have real world outcomes. So guys, look, I got on YouTube in the first place with two big motivations. One, I was getting divorced. I did not know when I was going to see my daughter again or how often I was going to see my daughter again. So very often I'm giving the short version of the story. That's the main thing I emphasize. That's the only thing I mentioned. Still true today. I now am divorced. The question of how often I get to see my daughter remains very open. This coronavirus thing has made international travel impossible, and the French court system is what it is at the best of times. These are not the best of times. So we don't know in the next several years how often I'm going to see my daughter, if at all. We don't know. And I knew, the next airplane I get on could crash, and this YouTube channel will be the last remnant of the man I was. It'll be the only way my daughter ever gets to know me. There's a huge, powerful motivating factor for making a YouTube channel and doing all the things I do down to and including today. This is one factor, right? But the second factor is, as I've said recently in talking about writing books, the potential to make a difference in the world. I'd put all these years and all this hard work into language, politics, history, and religion of Southeast Asia. Myanmar, Cambodia, Laos, Thailand, Sri Lanka. I knew all this stuff about Theravada Buddhism, and there was this flourishing atheist movement. So there was the potential for me to make a positive difference in the world. And I said, yeah, I saw that. And it was obvious that was offering me immediately a way to make a difference in the world, much more meaningful than, say, getting a PhD in religion, which is what I would have had to do to be in that field. Many years of hard work. And I know I have no illusions about what's at the end of that road once you've got the PhD. And look, guys, I mean, I think that's true still today. These kind of intellectually mediocre YouTubers, they really are the ones still making a difference in atheism, not the people with PhDs, even though I utterly despise the current generation of atheist YouTubers, and they're accomplishing nothing. Okay, so we saw that opportunity to make a difference in the world come, and we saw it go. It was totally unexpected for me, totally unexpected that veganism then proved to be the next big opportunity on YouTube. I didn't expect that at all. So I'm being 100% real with you. When I made the transition from Taiwan to Victoria, Canada, I thought on my YouTube channel I was going to be talking about Chinese politics and learning the Chinese language. And I thought I would have other people on the channel collaborating me, maybe like the Young Turks, maybe like Jimmy Dore. You have 2 or 3 people sitting at a desk. We would be talking about politics of China, politics of Asia. And, again, maybe I'd talk a little bit about politics in Thailand, Cambodia, some of these other countries, especially. But China, the number of white people who can really talk in depth and in a meaningful way about politics of China alone is almost zero. And obviously, I was someone who could make sophisticated comparative statements about how politics of China are connected to other countries in Asia, including India, but Southeast Asia, and then also Europe, North America, so on and so forth. And still to this day, I mean, so what? We have the New York Times sitting here. How many pages are about China? How many pages are about Asia in total if you leaf through the New York Times? There are a lot of things I can say that are bad about the New York Times. But, still to this day, there's this tremendous scarcity. So in both cases, you could say that's me responding to a certain kind of scarcity. I look at what's going on in atheism and say they have nobody who knows Buddhism. There's this atheist movement I can be a part of. I look at what's going on in politics and at least what you call commentary and analysis. I say there's nobody who knows China. I remember sending an email to the Young Turks saying, look, I appreciate your show. I see what you're doing. You got this guy who knows Turkey. You got this, I think that another guy at that time who knew Latin America, I forget exactly who was on the show at that time. I know you have these different people who are specialists, and the guy who was a film expert in this. So you have nobody who knows China. You have no one who knows any part of Asia on the show. What you really need to start covering is at least America's ongoing kind of Cold War with China, which since then has gotten hotter and hotter. But, I remember going through, and when I wrote this email, I went through a list of all their YouTube videos, and I think it was all their podcasts I had as 2 lists for the number of times China was mentioned. I forget if it was in a 5-year period or a 10-year period. And I told them in the email, I said, look, you have only mentioned China like 3 times in 5 years, in terms of the synopsis of every episode. I saw that as a positive expectation, as a positive opportunity to change the world. And then, to my surprise, what I ended up doing with my time here on YouTube instead was Buddhism. Was not Buddhism. Was not Chinese politics. It was instead the vegan movement. So, guys, another question. This is another example. So you say, Melissa's here off camera. We have someone here talking about SSRI, antidepressants. With all of these things, I have to ask, am I going to let it take over my life? Look, so I'm not a member of the Buddhist faith anymore. I'm an ex-Buddhist. How much time do you want to put into it? Do you want it to take over your life? I have put a certain number of years into Chinese as a language and Chinese politics and history. Do you want that to take over your life? The critique of antidepressants and SSRIs, you have to make a decision. Do you want to let that take over your life? And with all these things, to what extent do you want YouTube to take over your life? So, yeah. What I ended up doing was making this transition from atheism, politics and languages of Asia, especially China, to some extent Japan. And then what I ended up doing for several years was vegan politics. And the question is, what now? What next? And instead, as we move ahead, this is going to become a channel where I talk about what it is I'm reading, what it is I'm researching, and what it is I'm trying to do as an author, as a creative artist of my own initiative outside of YouTube. Because YouTube has ceased to be the place, where I find opportunity, right? I'm going to be seeking out those opportunities outside of YouTube. And then there's just going to be a kind of reflection of that. There's going to be a kind of archive for those thoughts and feelings here on my YouTube channel. Okay, so look, why have I disabled comments on the YouTube channel? It's real easy to think about how much time you waste today writing or replying to comments in a comment section. Most people don't even want to do that. They don't want to clock it. They don't really want to think about how many hours go into Instagram. I'm sorry, some of you, it's not on YouTube. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, wherever it is you're writing these comments. Reddit. You ever clock that? I know Melissa's had different times in her life where she doesn't do any of this, where she has zero time wasted this way. She's had other times where she's feeling she's wasting time with this, and she starts to chart it or record it, how much time is going into these kinds of comments. Okay, if you think it's not significant today, if you think it's not significant this week or this month, I'm telling you, it is. All right. Point two, once you have an audience, even if it is just an audience of 1,000 viewers per video. And by the way, guys, I've seen the statistics. I do have new people every month. It's not the same 1,000 people. Not worth digressing into that. But yeah, you do have new people coming in every month and seeing your videos. And you really care. Like, the reason I'm making that video talking about Bitcoin in the first place, I really care. I really want to overcome the misinformation and propaganda about Bitcoin. So how am I going to feel when people completely sincere, not trolls, no bad intentions, people with bad intentions people, whether they have good intentions or bad intentions, come into my comment section and are, sharing exactly the false views that I'm trying to overturn, that I'm trying to debunk. Same thing happens with Buddhism and Buddhist meditation. I make a video talking about how terrible, what a scam Buddhist meditation is. You're going to have people coming into your comment section saying, no, Buddhist meditation is wonderful. It changed their lives. And that there's scientific proof of its benefit. I made several YouTube videos specifically saying this is a lie. It is not true that there's scientific evidence that Buddhist meditation benefits you, or any form of meditation benefits you. Absolutely debunking that. If the comment section were open, every single comment would be people making excuses for, justifying, and supporting meditation, whether Buddhist meditation, Hindu meditation, or so-called secular meditation, which is just as self-contradictory as talking about secular prayer. All right, and I've seen that. I've seen that when my videos are discussed on Reddit or on other forums. That's all you're looking at. So one point is, what do you do when you don't want to waste time? What do you do when you really care, when the outcomes really matter? And then taking a step back, looking at it on a larger scale. What is going to happen with the next 5 years of your life? Okay. I mean this sincerely. I think one of the most important reasons why the amazing atheist accomplished nothing in the last 10 years is that he spent his time in comment sections. When you add it up, I think one of the most important reasons why Jacqueline Glenn accomplished nothing, so on. You can go down the list of all the luminaries in atheism, all the luminaries in veganism, all the luminaries in feminism. You can look at feminism as a movement on YouTube as another example, right? These movements that have come and gone. These are people who didn't have any particular plan, right? They didn't have something they were trying to accomplish in the next 5 years. They didn't have a particular ambition. And when that opportunity was there, when there really was the opportunity to make a difference in the world, rather than having that kind of plan, rather than having that kind of ambition and then accomplishing something, whether it be in 1 year, 2 years, or 5 years, it's not going to happen overnight, right? What did they do? They did the same thing that, no offense, 90% of you probably do with your day. They sit there on their phone bitching and complaining to random strangers, picking fights with random strangers, writing an essay-length reply to comment from a random anonymous person in the audience that will maybe be read by just one person, just the person you're replying to, but quite likely will be read by nobody at all. Okay? It's not trivial. It's not a minor part of like what I do on YouTube or my life or your life. If you are spending your life producing this kind of literature every day, writing hate mail to strangers, and I know your excuse. You may say they started it. It may be that every day you're responding to hate mail from strangers, whether that's on Twitter, whether that's on Instagram, whether that's on Reddit, or whether it's here on YouTube in a YouTube comment section. Okay. There is an alternative. There's more than one alternative. There's another way to live your life. You can look back at what I did in season 1 on this YouTube channel, and you take that as a model. I had a different answer back then, but really briefly, what I said was, look, I'm part of a political movement. I'm an aspiring leader in the political movement. I'm trying to change the world. So I'm not going to waste time in the YouTube comment section. I'm going to reach out to people as individuals and talk to them on Skype for an hour, because it's better for me to talk to just one person in depth and get to know them and talk to them with their problems and have that connection to talk to one person for 1 hour instead of wasting the same 1 hour writing a bunch of catty replies to anonymous people, comment sections, again, whether Twitter, Instagram, or otherwise. That's what I said then. That was my answer in season 1, right? Season 1 came to its calamitous conclusion, and we're now in season 2 on à-bas-le-ciel, and I have a different methodology. I have a different answer to the same fundamental question, right? And now I'm not reaching out to anyone. I'm not making myself available for that 1 hour Skype call. I'm not. The door is closed on that. It really is. I'm not available to people anymore. And I no longer see myself as a member of or a leader of the vegan movement. I've made the contribution that I could. I've written this book, and we'll see what happens from there. As I say, that chapter of my life is now really forever closed. What I'm saying is, look, I'm living a meaningful life. This is the life of the mind. This is what I'm doing as an intellectual. And I'm asking in the most open-minded way, hey, who's with me? I'm reading books. I'm not reading books for you. I'm not reading books in order to make YouTube videos about them. I'm not reading books for the audience. I have to have my own motivations to live my own life of active research and informed opinion. I've got to have my own initiative, my own creative projects that have nothing to do with YouTube and have nothing to do with this audience. And sure, as a kind of byproduct, there's something here that I can share, right? And each of you has to come up with your own answer this way. If you're honest with yourself, this question, why have I disabled comments in the YouTube section? All right. It has implications for you too, because there's some comment section somewhere you're wasting your time harvesting. What's the word? Pruning, mining, tending. You are attending your own comment section, whether it is on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook, or on whatever social media platform it is you may have, or whether it is that you try to carry out these kinds of wars right here in my own comment section. All right. When you die, do you want us to print out the sum total of all your correspondence on Twitter and staple it to your gravestone? Do you want us to etch into your gravestone, here was a great man. He fought 7,042 flame wars on Twitter, and he won 5,027 of them. Here are the great and fine words. Here is the literature of catty remarks and trolling and replies. Is that what you want to have to show for yourself when you die? I think that one of the worst misconceptions about social media is that it's free. This is costing you. All right. I mean, thank you for listening to me speak for an hour, but this comes at a price for the creator and for the people in the audience. There is something else you could be doing with that time. There's something else you could be reading, And there's something else you could be writing as well with the same amount of mental focus and energy that you're putting into writing these comments or replying to these comments. Whether you're writing long essays or whether you're just taking the time to focus your mind and write 2 short sentences that are as mean and emotionally devastating as possible to that other person. There's another kind of literature you could be consuming and that you could be producing also if you could really just learn this lesson and turn the comment section off.